what was put on my heart, and I guess it's a word of encouragement. I have tons of testimonies, but I was just asking the Lord exactly what direction He wanted me to lead me in today, and the word that came to me was push, and so many times, you know, push. So everybody said they have children in here, right? Does everyone have children?
Maybe, we never got to talk.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay, that's good, because neither do I. So if I throw off a little bit, I'm going to talk about pregnancy. Okay, you're like, not children. So push means, and you might have heard it over the time, about pushing. What does push? There's the acronym for push. Push can mean pray and praise until something happens. So, a lot of times, let me just put these on just in case. I mean, the light's squinting. Okay. It's somewhat of an older, I would say cliche, but many know it by that push. You know. So when you say push, what comes to mind when you say that? When you hear the word push?
Persistence. Yeah.
Oh, and then for those who had children, you know that lovely word, push. And so even that, even though situation is prevalent today and true in every era of our lives, when we go through various challenges and trials, whether it's in family, career, church, relationships, some form that the pain we're experiencing, and we want it to stop, not later, but now. But what we don't always do is pray about it. We complain about it. We talk about it up here. This workshop is always going, how can I figure this out? What can I do? And so we really talk ourselves into a tizzy, and then and our prayer to God is, help, I need you to stop the pain now. And this is continual, you know, so it's not like, you know, we don't have to use big words, you know, lots of, you know, Father God, you know, I'm coming to you humbly as I know. At this point, we're in pain, like I need help and I need it now. So, but what we don't realize is, even though that's our consistent way of saying, God, I need help, but we never stop and say, Lord, instruct me how to work this out. First show me me. How did I participate in this pain? Did I participate in the pain? Did I cause this? So there's a series of things. But then we never still say, Lord, help me. We say, help me. Get me out of this now. But we never ask the Lord, what do you want me to help you with? We just say help, you know, because God is a man of, you know, when I say man, because people go start getting in the battle, you know. So, as I said, the Lord is He's a specific God. And so, a lot of times we say this, but God said, pinpoint it. What is it that you want me to help? Because it's just things out there. Help, 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 help. So he needs a directive. What do you want me to fix? So just like you tell your kids, I need help, you know, and they're younger and they're just making a mess and they're like, okay. And then you get upset because they didn't help. And they're like, well, you know, you see this and that, but you never were specific. If you want me to take the take the garbage out, please, or clean your room. See, there's a directive. And so that is why we have to be specific, not only be specific, but to ask in faith. See, that's another thing. Sometimes we put things out there, and, you know, we want this and want that, God, you know, but then we say it in faith, it comes out real strong, but then we stop it by like, you know, I don't know if that's going to work. How can he fix this? You know, and so we box God in to like saying, well, And I really do, because sometimes it's this out of habit. We see what's in front of us is like a huge mountain. So we make God the size of that situation or smaller. Like I said, then we have to stop and say, God, you made all of this, you know, and then we go back to that little children's song that says, he has the whole world in his hand. So the whole world in his hand is like a pin, you know, a little tennis ball, you know. So we have to understand that God is bigger and he already knows what is going on before we get there. And through all this is saying that for those mothers who have given birth, when you're nearing the process of giving birth, there were long hours of labor has passed for most. And there's an uncontrollable urge to push. And then he said, I can't do this anymore. So at that point you're like, just do whatever, just, you know, let's get this over. And so what God is saying, even in this, but in it all, you bear down your inner strength and then you push to bring this gift of life. And it's so intense at that time of labor. But it's a signal that the baby has dropped at that point, that it's in the birth canal. Am I right, guys, so far? Okay. And then it's in position to come into the world. And so then we're told to keep pushing, but they're so exhausted through all that's going on. You're just like, I'm done. I just given up all the strength I had. But not long, here comes, you hear, wah, and there's a gift of life that you brought into the world. And you're so happy, and then hours pass that you don't even remember, that's what I heard, that you don't remember the pain, all the excruciation that you went through. And so it is as the times you go through your process, is that you're really in transition, and you're in delivery, you're scheduled for you. So you go through the same pain, but not as you're delivering that way, giving birth to a child, but you have pain, you have sleepless nights, you're walking the floor, you know, you're doing all this, just like, you know, like I'm so uncomfortable. And so what it is, so that is what we go through in transitioning when God, you're having something before the Lord, and you're asking Him to deliver you from this. And so it seems like so long, God, did you not hear me? I really need you to work this out for me now. And so the key is, after we sought the Lord, is now to get in the place, position now. Just as you got in position to give birth, we have to get into position, and that position, as after you pray, is to praise. And so one of the quick testimonies that I came to mind when the Lord was giving me this was when one of my first jobs, and it was the worst. I had such a horrible management, and it was like a small office, and a woman, you know, the manager, the supervisor, and he was really crude with his mouth. He just said whatever. He cursed a lot, and I'm like, well, now what am I doing in here, you know? So, but he was just really just a rough, you know, kind of guy, and just the way he would talk to everybody. And so it turned out that I said, Lord, you're going to get me out of this, because there was no move for elevation in that department. And so I said, Lord, I need you to get me out of here. God bless you. And so what turned out was I kept praying. I said, Lord, you need to move me. You need to move me, please. You know, so going on and on. So I would give it to God, and then I was like, okay, God, here it is. I just can't handle this, you know. And then I start looking on my own. I said, okay, I got to get out of here. So I looked, and then it stopped. Then it kept going back and forth. Here it is, God. Well, you know, then I take it back, and I said, maybe something I could do. And God is like, I said, okay. Then it gets too heavy, and I give it back. And I remember visually seeing the Lord just go like this over me. And He was like saying, Val, if you don't totally give this to me and let me work, I can't. You tie in my hands. And so when we do that back and forth, we're trusting, then we're not trusting. We're in faith, we're not in faith. And God said He would not honor. He said a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And so we have to get to the place where we say, God, for all, for nothing, here it is, take it, you know, whether it's career moves, family, relationships, whatever that mountain is, or whatever this big thorn that is like, you know, sucking the life out of you, is God is saying, just give it to me and leave it there. And He said, cast all your cares upon me because I care for you. he's asking us, why are you trying to carry this when I already told you you don't have to? You know, just give it to me and let it rest. And so a lot of times it's just out of our habit. So, because my other thing was to help the Lord. I said, I know you're so busy, and I said, you have this whole world, you're trying to answer everybody's, problems and helping, so I'm gonna help you, like that. So he was like, I don't remember looking over and like, oh God, I was like, I don't need your help, I can do what I want to do when I want to do it. But then it was getting in the place of waiting. And that's the hardest part. After we prayed, then God is saying, okay, you need to praise, even though nothing's changed around you. So this is when you get in the place to say, God, I thank you. You start speaking those things that be not as though they were. So you get to the place where you say, God, I'm going to thank you ahead of time. I already thank you for the position. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I trust you. And you just start praising God just like you had it. And people around you may say, where is she? She don't have the job. She's in the same situation, or nothing's changed. So certain people you can share that with, and then others you're like, okay, you're really losing it right about now because nothing's changed. Mm-hmm. But in your heart, you have to believe and speak life into that. And so what happens through that, close up that testimony side, is that out of nowhere, here the district manager who was my supervisor's boss, came. He was inquiring about me. I worked in, at that time, it was an office down, so I worked in a computer company, and I worked in the shipping department. So I was in the administrative side down there. So then they said the big office, all the big offices and things were upstairs in other departments. So the district supervisor, sought me out and told me about this job. He wanted to talk to me. And he offered me to be his administrator. So I got hired out of those people who've been down there. They were not happy campers. Scott. And so here I was now sitting in the big office, and so everything that they were so persistent and all this, they now had to go through me to get to the boss. So you never know how one situation will work out, that God will escalate you in the midst of what you're going through. And so you don't see the way, you don't see how it can be made, but here God did this for me. And so, and it was something because they had these reports and everything. They used everybody to go past me to get to the office, to bring things up. They were always up in the office, but when I was in there, they had to go through me. They would send different messages to the manager, but God, and it reminds me of the scriptures that God said, I will prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies. So it doesn't matter what it looks like. And so when God does, and I always think of tables, like big tables, and like I think the cartoons where they talk about, where they see the kings at the table, he's at the head and, has this big turkey leg in his hand and stuff, and those people around, they're eating. But here it turns out that the enemies can sit at the table. They're gonna watch you eat, but they can't touch the food. So you sit there and you're smiling because they don't know well, they know what they did to you, but God is gonna allow them to see your blessings and turning that about eating. When God begins to shower and pour out the blessings behind us, like, I don't know how this happened, but in knowing that it was not from the hand of man, but it was God. And so I just wanted to leave with you also that how when we go through things, it says all things work together for good, but then that love God and called according to his purpose. So a lot of times when we go through, it's a struggle, just as giving birth. This is not an easy thing. And if it was, like I always use, I dream of Jeannie. If it was to get kids here, just blink and, it's done. And I'm sure a lot of women say, yes, please, in and out. And no stretch marks, no nothing. And, but here it talks about that even in the midst of all of this going on, that God even planted a seed within us. And so there's purpose in us. There's visions in us that God has given us even before we even got here. And so he wants us to also to birth this And because of some of the things that happen in our lives that cause some, struggles, whatever it is, no one knows your story better than you, your testimony. But God said today, those dreams and those visions, those aspirations, and no matter what the age, it's still in you. Because God is, he's not like man. Say it today, and tomorrow, I changed my mind. I don't think I want it that way. He's not like that. Whatever he said, till the time that he doesn't take it back. He doesn't renege on his word. And he says that he wants us to, he's faithful. And that's what I tell time. God is so faithful. No matter what goes on, he's so faithful. And it said, and if you didn't go through the struggle, which you can put your mind right on some things right now. It was a tug of war. It was painful. You felt everything, just like the pregnant woman, the sleepless nights, the talking, your mind is going. You can't even get clarity to even think. But all of that was working out for your good, because that was now when you came to know God, to give it over to Him. He was saying, "Give this to me." He said, "Come ye all that are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Let's switch that around. And so he said he desires for us to rest. And if you hear him throughout his word, to sit down, lay down, Psalms 23. So just to rest. Be still. And know that I am God. And that's what he desires. But just as I was thinking of the story of the butterfly, and I don't like caterpillars, but then they're ugly and they're furry, the whole thing, So I'm just, but I love the caterpillar. I don't like the caterpillar, but I love the butterfly. And so we see them, oh, it's beautiful, look at the colors, but we don't see what it was, what it went through. And we're like, that came out of this, It's so many times that when they look at us, that came out of this, whatever you went through. Amen. And on my bag that I carry, it says, I don't look like what I've been through. So it says, because people's like, there's no way, I said, you got time, cup of coffee, we'll chat, But there's so much, but God will make it you won't look like what you've been through. And because you went through it, God was so heavy is because God was allowing that. He was letting you go through. Which I also had a conversation about the Lord. It was never about you. And it's like, how can you say that, Lord, when I was the one feeling the pain? I went through this, and you mean wasn't about me? So, but the reason why it was so weighty on you, and it reminds me of when you're coming through the canal, I was talking about pregnancy, is that it's so heavy when you were coming through it, is because there was somebody hanging onto your heels. And it was, so when you came through, you were pulling them out. So when they came through, they were able to come out easier, because when they came out of it, you were able to turn around and say, I understand what you're going through, because I've been there. And you have that testimony. And that's why it's good to have that, to share your testimony, because you went through that so you could turn around, and the Bible says be helpers of one another. And so that, so you're turning around and encourage your brother, strengthen your brother. And so it thought about the caterpillar as it was going through this slimy process, and as he was birthing through. And so there was a story about a man who saw this caterpillar, and he was really struggling, and this butterfly was trying to come out. And he's struggling, so he felt so bad. So he took a pair of scissors and tried to help the butterfly out of that cocoon. And he felt that this way he can get out, freer. He would be able to go, and expand his wings. But turned out, he actually caused death to the butterfly. Because what happened was, God is so awesome. What he did was he allowed the butterfly to move, because what happens through the struggle, this butterfly was exercising his muscles. So he was building up his muscles so he could have strength enough to fly. But because he was cut out too soon, prematurely, he didn't exercise that muscle. So instead of him taking off and flying, he flopped and he died. So a lot of times, because we had to go through something, we were building our spiritual muscles. We were working. We were like, God, I believe you. I'm praying for this expected end. You know, I'm not giving up. And so this is how we are in the spirit. So though it may not feel good, it may not look good, but it's for your good. And because of this, you building up your spiritual muscles. You're building up your muscles in faith and believe in God that he can do this. So, and I always said, there's a song that would say, if God, if you can do this, you surely can do that. You know, this was real mighty, you know. And I always, and people will hear me, I always say, I said, Lord, you don't even have to bust a sweat to do this one for me. You don't even have to get off the throne. This is just, you know, this is light, you know. This is a light thing for you, you know. And so, and that's what we had to look. God has said, oh, you know, my daughter, she's waiting on me on this one, you know. And so he's flexing his muscles, you know, let me show up on this. You know, it gives God pride to say that, oh, they're asking for me. They know, you know, and, you know, because on the natural side, I'm the one who always, you know, when I hear issues going on, you know, I whip out my, you know, my Coach Val cape, and I'm to the rescue. You know, I got dive in like the super Val, so you know, and then I'll take it to prayer. But then God is like, I don't want you to put your cape on, you know, just relax, take a chill pill, it's the oldest thing, this, and sit back on this, I got this, you know. And so we're always, we're doers, you know, we're fixers, we're, you know, we're nurturers. So, but God is saying, now, after all this that you're doing for everybody, who's taking care of you? Do we ever stop and think about, have you stopped to do self-care?
Self-care.
I mean, because we get in there, we're like, I'm so tired. I'm just like, you know, I've done this. And I said, well, look what you did today. You know, it's just like, you know, you never even took a Calgon moment, you know, just sit in the tub. You know, I was thinking about your father. He wouldn't have really liked that. The Calgon moment to take me away, you know. And so, yes. Don't show my age too. So then here it shows that we need to, like, he again comes back to the word rest. Rest in me. Come love on me. And I one of the testimonies was when I was going through was another, it was always in the career, different things was going on. They were talking about downsizing from the time I started the company, up to there, I was there 25 years. There was always issues of merging and downsizing. So like the last one in is usually the first one out. But that was not my case. It got until the time that there was a whole total transition, God let me be there for 25 years. And with the same department. Now that is unheard of, to be there and knowing this is the place I kept praying to get out of, you know, because I was going through all these things there. But God said, I can't move you. It was a joke. I think, you know, God has a sense of humor when I said, God, I gotta move. So like talking about being direct and being specific, I said, God, you gotta get me out of here. You know, you know this thing. So he said, okay. So he moved me from this desk, right, I'm here, but I'm over here. He moves me, I'm like, still in the same department, you know, different management, but I'm still in the same group. I said, okay, God. I'm not making myself quite clear. I need to get out of here and to go somewhere else. So he's like, okay. So he moves me over here, but I was under a different management. I said, God, still, I'm not making myself clear. Really, I'm not being specific. I need to move from here out of here. So he moves me, and it's a huge organization. So it's all on the floor. So there's so different facets. So he moved me from this to across the hall, you know, on the other side of the building, same department. Still work with these people, all different management. And I said, I don't know how to make this more clear. I need to get out of here, physically move up here to another group. So he's like, okay. And all these years, we were there for about 10 years in this one department in that location. So we're moving. I'm like, oh, I'm out of here now, God. I'm going. He moves me with the group to another location, you know, and I'm there for 7 years. And I was like, okay, God. I said, all right, at 7 years, that's completion. Okay, we were here in this new place for 7 years. He turns out we move again. So I'm like, I'm gone now. And so he moves me with him. And so I said, God, why are you keeping me? Maybe that was the first question I should have asked. So, why? I said, you see all that's going on and all this and blah, blah, and I'm showing the love of God. And even when you had me apologize for stuff I didn't even do, you know, it's like you're humbling me and I pray for these people, you know, and they're going through all these situations. And then he spoke to me, that I woke up and I said, God, I won't ask you. I still needed some prayer, but I didn't say complain as much as I was to him. And he said, if I move you, he said, souls will be lost. And I said, well, God. He said, I kept you here because of your life. Because they didn't know God. They didn't know him. And so if I moved you out of the place, knowing I'm keeping there because of your covering and because you're praying for them. But if I move you out of place, people would die. I'm like, okay. But you still see what they're doing. Sometimes then we get to self, and I should say, well, you ought to be happy that I'm here. I allowed it. I know we get prideful because if it didn't keep me here, you'd be out of here. It's like, and that doesn't change, because we're people. We have emotions. You're being mistreated and different things. But it was the enemy who was hiding. But through that was building your muscles. You were building up your faith muscles and trusting. And so with that, just to encourage you, whatever your struggle that you're going through on today, and it seems like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe you need strength, strength for whatever that is. You can share it if you like. If not, that's fine, but we're going to do prayer, have prayer, and maybe you need some resources, and maybe there's some dreams that are in you now that for a long time it was there, it was really nagging you, and you said, I wanted to do this, but because of fear, and you said, I can't do it. And then you get to the age and say, oh, I'm too old to do this now. That's for some young buck. How many times have all of us have done that at some point, and just say, oh, I can't do it now. I don't have the resources, I don't have this, I don't have that. But then we have to really remember that we serve such a big God. And so many times, and because he said, Jesus lives in my heart, and for somehow we minimize the Lord to fit right here. Because he's in my heart. Our heart is like that big. And so we minimize his ability, and then we do overexert ourselves. And God said, why? There's an old song, and I hear it, I used to hear it a lot, and you might have heard it. It says, I'm climbing up the rough side of the mountain. And it says, I'm doing my best to make it in. It's a real drudgery song. I'm climbing up the rough side of the mountain. And it came to my mind, climbing up, and I used to sing it, I was like, climbing this mountain. First I don't do heights like that. First, I don't see myself climbing a mountain. I'm like, I broke my nail, I'm just like, So I'm not an outdoorsy type of girl, So, but even climbing the mountain, think about it. You're climbing and climbing, and God has said, why are you climbing the mountain? And if you're going to climb the mountain, why don't you take the smooth side? Why go up the rough side of it, with the terrain, and all this. And he told us, he said, speak to that mountain, and it shall be removed. So why are we trying to climb it? Why are we trying to chisel at it to get through, to make a tunnel? Well, he said, speak to it. And it's so easy. And it's funny because every time when we think about the word, it sounds easy, or rolls right off, but we do the opposite. So it's like God is just saying, I want you to be relaxed. I got this. He said, I knew everything that you were going through before you even got here, before he placed you in your mother's womb. He said, so nothing comes to surprise to him. It comes to surprise to us, and we get all worked up and say, God, you see me. He's like, yeah, I do that, I'm God, But we get excited because we don't see what's behind it, so we know only what we see, what we come to at that moment, that mountain, that whatever, that rough area. And we get all worked up. We're like, oh gosh, how's this going to work out? This is going to happen. We already make scenarios in our head. What's going to happen before they do? And so what we do, we take our mouths and we speak into what this thing that we shouldn't have. we say, well, this is gonna happen, well, it said, you shall have what you say. So we get to the point where we start speaking out the negative and just say, well, instead of saying, what does God say about this? And turning it back and knowing that he said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. He said, I'll be with you to the ends of the world. So we're gonna end in prayer. Does anybody have anything particular that they need strength or area?